that, I'll ask the first question. What motivated you to choose a career in operations? And kind of with that, how did you end up in your current position?
So you want, Ed, why don't you go first on that?
Okay, I will. So my career path has been pretty short. Ecolite was founded in 1970 by my father and my grandfather. And I worked there since I've worked at Ecolite since I was 15 years old. So I started as a machine operator and eventually wound up running the company. So I've done almost every job there, including supply chain management at one point. But I didn't deviate much at all from Ecolite. I did some consulting work on the side, but I've been there all my life, and that's how I wound up in being the CEO and managing the operations.
In my case, this is Dave Kenny. So in my case, I didn't really seek out a career in operations. It sort of fell into my lap, I guess you would say. I spent quite a few years as a biomedical engineer working for a company called Advanced Technology Laboratories over in the Puget Sound area, which is now part of Philips Medical Systems, and left that company in the late 80s. And I joined the John Fluke Manufacturing Company, which makes various types of electronic test and measurement equipment. And I was their director of engineering education, which was an interesting position, but exposed me to a wide variety of engineering disciplines because my role was to bring in different engineering topics. And one of the topics that came to our forefront was this whole idea of just-in-time manufacturing. And so it kind of intrigued me. We had a John Fluke chair from the University of Washington by the name of Douglas Montgomery, and he was our professor at the company. And he came in and did a series of seminars that got me interested in the whole idea of Lean, Six Sigma, doing production activities. And from there, I just sort of folded into the whole concept of doing Lean, acquired a grant from the Job Institute's Job Skills Program in Washington State to branch out and build the transformation within American industry in the Puget Sound area. I spent quite a few years of consulting in that field, and then most recently, about 10 years ago, I joined Flight Safety International because they were one of my key clients, and they asked me to come work for them full time doing the same thing. So that's kind of my career path in operations.
Awesome. Next question, a little more focused on your education. How has your education background helped in your career?
You want me to start again?
Sure, why not? We'll just go back and ping pong.
Yep, okay. Yeah, my degree gave me the tools that I needed to navigate, one, in the business world, and two, in the product development world. So with Ecolite, and I'm sorry to keep focusing directly on manufacturing, but it's what I do. At Ecolite, we make all of the hard stuff that other people don't want to make. That's why people subcontract these parts and fixtures to us, because they either use exotic, expensive materials that can cause big scrap problems and be costly in that regard, and they're also difficult to handle. And so having my my engineering degree gave me the tools that I needed to be able to design products and the tools to make those products, and then to manage the production of those products.
So in my case, a little bit different than that. I was attending a Bible college in Canada on the hopes I would not get drafted. So that was back in the years when the draft was vehement, going about. Well, upon graduation, of course, I figured, I'm probably going to some kind of ministry or something like that. Well, upon graduation, of course, the U.S. Army came knocking and said, we need you, because the draft was still active. So I joined the United States Army as a biomedical engineer, enjoyed the field, enjoyed what I was doing, acquired my bachelor's degree while I was in the Army. And then after I got out of the Army, I pursued an MBA because I figured that would provide me another rounding of education from the standpoint of understanding how businesses and systems operate within a business. And then you already heard my story about how I got into the operations side of it. But those skills and those, I guess you would say, learning experiences within the educational field I think are even though there's a lot of classes or a lot of things we take as students, we wonder what's the purpose of this. I don't understand this. I don't see how this is going to apply to my workload or what I'm going to be doing in the business world. But come to find out, it builds a thought process in our minds that I think just isn't as fully developed when you don't have that education.
Great. Next, we have looking back at your career path, college experience and studies, what would you do different? This could be maybe different areas of study, different degrees, whatever.
So I'm envious of David. I wish I had an MBA. That's my regret, is that I didn't have more business experience. Because from an entrepreneurial standpoint, engineers want to be creative. The problem is we design elegant solutions to products or problems that don't exist. So, the rule is you got to have a customer, and then you've got to have an affordable solution for that customer. So I'm guilty as charged for creating products that, one, I didn't have a customer for, or two, I had a customer, but I created a solution that was too expensive. So the happy medium is somewhere in between. And I think more of a business education I would have learned that a lot sooner, and probably would have a lot more equity in the company as a result.
Hindsight, right?
Yep.
In my case, I don't know if there's anything specifically I would do different. I enjoyed the career I had. Like I said, it wasn't something that I actually pursued when I came out of high school and then went to college and went off to find my career. It wasn't something that I actually had my sights on. It was something that sort of developed as time went on. But that being said, I wish I'd have spent more time understanding mathematics at an earlier age, and logic. Those two things I find, the older I get or the more experience I get, the more I begin to see those connections between mathematics, the math of things, and then logic, being able to approach problems or approach different situations that are thrown at you in the business world with a pragmatic sense, but also with a logical sequence based on data.
Having said that, what's one thing you wish you would have known when you were a student, back in our position?
Yeah, so the Jesuit curriculum is very well rounded, and there were times when I thought, why am I taking a critical thinking class right now? Why am I in philosophy? I should be over in a lab conducting an experiment in material science or doing something engineering based. And I wish I would have realized how valuable all of that was when I was in school, because now, for instance, I'd use critical thinking to formulate an argument in a negotiation. Whereas back then, I couldn't see the value in it. And all of the other classes that you take that are not related to your career are really important in the end. And I didn't understand that back when I was at Gonzaga.
In my case, I wished I had understood the power of compound interest. If I'd understood the power of compound interest back there, probably wouldn't have to be working today, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we have, describe your typical day at work. What are your biggest challenges in executing your responsibilities?
So I start the day with a floor walk. I meet with all of my value stream managers and the maintenance department as well. I just walk to each one, and we hold a standing meeting, because when you have chairs, meetings last a lot longer. So we have a standing meeting at each value stream, and I go in and understand what the challenges are. So what are the doors I can open? What if any advice can I give? I need to understand what the challenges are on the floor. And once that's all kind of played out, I go and do product design and business development. So I'm in the operations first thing, and then I kind of slide out. But I'm available. I don't have a private office. Ashish has been there. It's it's an open environment and anyone can come at any time if they need me for anything whatsoever. So that's kind of my day in a nutshell.
So in my case, I spend most of my time interacting with various teammates in our company, just like this, over video connections or over the phone or email. And we start off with I work with the executive leadership to define a specific problem. What is an issue or problem or difficulty that the president, the general manager, or VP observes and sees. And then I work with them to understand that problem from the standpoint of not solving it, but contextually. What is the scope of the problem? What are you seeing that tells you there is a problem? What's the data? What kind of evidence is that says, hey, I've got an issue? And rather than just saying I'm frustrated, you got to be able to condense that to some kind of metric. So it takes a little while, a lot of times, to figure that out because a lot of our metrics are not easily obtainable. It takes a while to understand where those metrics come from and then believe that the metrics are really true. So I'll spend a lot of time working with that executive group to understand and define that problem. Once we do that, then we put in motion our plan, do, study, act process using A3 principles, using Lean Sigma tools and techniques, and then work with various team members remotely as much as we can. Sometimes we have to get a team together, particularly when it comes to the point of defining a solution. It's difficult to do that when you don't have that face-to-face activity. So I think one of the challenges we're seeing in the last year has been the emphasis within our company is to move more towards this type of a format, using these video links to be able to interact with people and still have a meaningful outcome. And that's hard to do when you've got a team of 10 or 12 or 15 people, is to give them all that opportunity, but to have them engaged as well. So that's part of my frustration. That's also part of what I do each day.
Next, we have, when you or your company hires new grads, what are you most looking for in their resume or interview?
Two top qualities are flexibility and the ability to collaborate. So like David just said, if you've got a large team, say 10 or more people, when you're trying to solve a problem or create a product or whatever the case may be, collaboration can be tough because, you've got different personalities, you've got egos, you've got all of these human elements involved in a process that you want a good outcome from. And so I would look at those two attributes. Those would be at the top of my list. The ability to be flexible, right? You've got a lot of tools in your quiver, but if you want to focus in one area of the company, you're probably not my person, right? I need you to, we have 6 value streams and each one of those is completely different. And so you need to be able to apply yourself to each one of those. And so I think flexibility is number 1 and the ability to collaborate would be number 2 for me.
Yeah, I can go along with that. I think it's right on. Ability to work with people. So being able to see that ability to interact with various people in that, environment he was talking about. And I like to think also what we look for are the ability of people to take guidance and instruction. So, you're not looking for someone who's a know-it-all, but somebody who can come in and they know things, which is what the reason you hire them, but you also want them to be able to take guidance and instruction and think logically about that activity that they're working with. So that teamwork aspect of being able to share those ideas and lead a group of people, I think is important. That's things that we look for.
You guys kind of talked about this next one a little bit, but what are the different career options / paths in operations? I don't know if you can. I know you both had different ways into it, but maybe kind of touch on your industry, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah. So for us, some of the top positions in the company are value stream managers. Those people, both men and women at Ecolite, control their own business unit. They have their own people, their own tooling, their own equipment, and their own products. And so you could think of them as a separate company that you could just spin right off, independent. And so those people, they tend to be very motivated. They listen. They are good collaborators, right? So they use their people as an improvement resource as well as just a direct labor resource. So that's one of the things that they understand and it's one of the reasons they have those positions. Obviously, supply chain management, and again, at Ecolite, you've got to feed these different value streams, and so they all have different requirements in terms of the products that we purchase to feed them. What else do we have? Freight and logistics, because you know, we're in Spokane, Washington, and our customers are all elsewhere, including international. So there's a lot to manage from that perspective. And then we also have to create our own tooling and oftentimes build our own equipment. So we have an operations guy that runs maintenance, because it is in and of itself a separate, it's like a separate company. It's a full-blown machine shop. So those are the things that exist where I'm from.
So in my case, flight safety specifically is a simulation training company. So we
It looks like
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not getting any audio from David,
yeah,
and I lost his video as well.
lots of video too. Okay. So probably we can just begin with a next question, and if David is able to join back, we can go back to the same question with David and then proceed with the other question.
And then there was one.
Okay, so should I just go ahead and go to the next
Yeah.
one? Okay. You kind of talked about some of the soft skills that you look for in graduating students, but kind of putting yourself as a student with a concentration in operations and supply chain management, what skill or topical knowledge would you suggest us pursuing?
So one of the necessary evils, and I hate to call it that, but it's a necessary evil in manufacturing, is an MRP system, right? Material resources it's critical. You have to have it, but these MRP programs or ERP programs are seldom what you need them to be. In other words, they require a ton of customization to fit what you're doing in terms of manufacturing. So, I mean, if you just had one widget you were making and you were buying 3 things to make it, and that's all you did all day, they'd be great. But that's not how we operate. Our system is much more complicated, and so is our supply chain, and so are our customers. So for me, the ability for someone to be able to manipulate an MRP system, to customize it for what we do, is like invaluable. And I have an operations person that does that, and I worship the ground she walks on. I mean, she is, God bless her, she finds all the little fixes, and she works with tech support, and she's got our system now after about 2 years running smoothly. But it was not easy, and she's a brilliant lady. The other thing that would be important to me, and David mentioned it earlier, is the acquisition of real data, and then compiling that data and using it in a spreadsheet model to run different scenarios, because that helps the company make decisions. So whether it's in terms of how we're pricing product, or what markets we want to continue to attack, which ones we want to lean away from, all of that is very important. So the ability to collect, manipulate, and model data is invaluable.
So what do you recommend college students do in order to prepare for a career in operations? It's a long list of these here, but I'll just kind of hand it to you.
Yeah, so for me, my operations people start out on the floor. They have to be in Gemba. We call it Gemba's the real place in Wayne. So they have to be in Gemba to see how the operation works, and then be able to identify value and non-value added activity. So value is what your customers will pay for. For us, that's punching holes, assembling, bending, painting. And non-value added is stuff your customer won't pay for, like moving a pallet from here to there, or walking some material to the other end of the building. So my ops people need to know how to identify value and how to eliminate non-value activities.
Once employed in an organization, how important is continuing education for career advancement?
Yeah, so it's an incredible impetus for anybody, right? To keep learning. Like I had a human resources manager who at night got her MBA at Gonzaga, and that whole time I just kept thinking to myself, she's going to burn out. She's going to burn out. She's not going to make it. She's working 8 hours a day and then going to school at night. And I got to tell you, I've never seen anybody so energized in my life. So I think it's important for the executive team, but I also think it's important for all of the employees. So we do cross training internally. And then we try to get other companies that practice lean, and we do home and away meetings, right? So we'll get a group of people and go tour their factory. They'll get a group of people, they'll come tour our factory, so that we can always keep learning, right? Somebody out there is doing it better than I am. I want to go see that.
How important are professional certifications in operations management, such as project management, quality, Six Sigma, and which ones are most sought by employers?
Well, I'm speaking from my personal standpoint, and I wish David were still on the call, because lean is what's most important to us, the use of lean tools. So when I say identify waste and then eliminate it, that's essentially the spirit of lean. And so people come into my organization. I've had guys that talk the lean talk, told me how, yep, they get it. They know what they're doing with lean. And then I come in the morning and there's piles of work in process. And to me, that's, I just got snowballed, right? So I have people that know it and do it, and I have people that talk it and don't do it. And so the wheat and the chaff get separated, and we're a lean organization. So I think it's the most important tool, because everything else stems from it. You will understand if you're doing something that your customer won't pay for once you get lean. And so lean tools, I think, are the most important in my organization.
How does your company's policy on sustainability, social responsibility, and ethics influence your long-term and short-term decision-making processes?
Well, it guides us because it's our mantra, right? We build LED light fixtures, and those are substantially more efficient, efficacious, and they save a ton of power compared to old fluorescent and HID type fixtures. So we want to continue to build LED light fixtures and replace that old technology. We can deliver the same amount of light using 60% of the electricity. So as we grow as a society and our TVs get bigger and use more power, the savings have to come from somewhere, because they're not going to build more coal plants, right? So we do it in what's called megawatts, negative watts, right? By saving energy, we create an excess or an abundance out there for all of the new uses that people have for it.
How important is community service from your company's perspective?
You know, we all live in the community, so we have to support it. We have to give back to it. I think it's paramount that you make a profit, but I also think it's important that you share it. I'll give you an example. I've got a guy at Ecolite who has an autistic son, and his son was at the guild school, and this guy comes to work one day and he says, Ed, I went to pick up my son, and because the fluorescent lights bother the autistic kids, they put bed sheets over the fixtures and just let the light kind of bleed through them so that they're not blinding. And he knew that we made retrofit products in LED that were dimmable. So we went into those areas and we retrofitted them with dimmable fixtures. So now they can use that space for more than one thing. They can turn the lights up when they don't have autistic kids in, and they can turn them down when they do. So it's important, right? We have to give back.
Yeah, that's great. What leadership attributes equate to success in the field of operations, and especially with your role as CEO?
Yeah, so it's a balancing act, right? You got to keep your eye on the horizon, which I haven't always done well. Like I was probably 2 years late to the LED space because I thought the transition was going to be longer. And that cost me some equity and some stomach lining and some sleep because I didn't have my eye on the horizon well enough, right? So I think you need to keep your eye on the horizon, but you have to have attention to detail because your people, which are your most important asset, have to know that you're engaged, that you empathize with what they do and the challenges that they face. So attention to detail with eye on the horizon. It's a scale that you got to keep balanced.
And one piece of advice to students that you haven't already mentioned.
One piece of advice. So I would say you're going to go out and find a job, and you got to sniff out the company. You got to be happy where you work. So go find a place where you get the feeling that people are happy. They're not walking around, with their heads down or staring straight ahead. They look like they're enjoying what they're doing, because if you're happy with what you're doing, you're going to collaborate, you're going to contribute, and you're going to feel good about that. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. You'll probably get an offer that's, $20,000 a year more from one company than from another company. But if the people in that company that's offering you $20,000 less are happy, it's worth $20,000, trust me.
Great. Well, we kind of went through those pretty fast because we lost a member, but I guess that's good because we have a little bit of extra time, I guess, to open it up to anyone watching that wants to ask a question. We'll just leave it open. And I guess I'll hand it back to you, Ashish.
David emailed me. His internet is down. He'll be back in momentarily. In the meanwhile, we can just open it to audience questions, and he should be joining us pretty soon. So anyone having a question for our Ed Caferro, please go ahead.
So Ed, someone else. So Ed, you mentioned that you look for flexibility in people that you hire. I was just wondering, when you are trying to hire someone and you're looking for that trait, how do you assess someone for how flexible they are? What do you look for in them?
I think the first question I would ask is, what's your comfort zone? And if somebody gets very funneled and direct in that answer, that's kind of a red flag for me. If somebody says, I'm willing to take on anything, I'll try whatever you want, and I'll work as hard as I can to do it, that's what I want to hear. Does that kind of answer your question? It's a good interview question that people will ask. What are you comfortable with? And I think the way you want to respond to that is, I may not be comfortable with everything, but I'll work as hard as I can and try whatever you want me to try.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's a good answer.
So I had a question.
Go ahead.
If no one else had one. So you mentioned that your business units had more or less autonomy, sort of as if they were their own separate businesses. About how much leeway and control do you usually award them?
So they're autonomous. They come to me as a resource, not as a boss. They're not looking for orders. They do their own scheduling. They communicate with customer service. They have very visible Kanban boards, so I can walk up to one of those value streams, and I can say, well, value stream 1, their first open production date is May 3rd. It's very visible, right? And so when sales service takes an order, they walk out to the Kanban board and they go, oh, May 3rd is available, and they put that order in. So they come to me as a resource, not to get marching orders. The other thing I would say about the value stream managers is they all collaborate. So they do a little horse trading in the morning. They all huddle up, and one of them says, hey, this job I'm running today, I only need 5 people. I got 7. Who needs 2? And they'll move people back and forth. And again, that's that flexibility piece for us. I don't need you to just work in one value stream. I need you to cross state lines once in a while, or maybe every other day. But they run that. I have nothing to do with that. I walk downstairs. I say, how's it going? And they say, you know what, we're out of material for a job on Thursday. Mm-hmm. And I go to the logistics and say, what's it going to cost to fly that in? Right. That's where I'm just kind of opening the doors, right? Giving the options. So to answer your question, very autonomous.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's one more question from the audience. What's one thing Ed knew or wished he knew before starting his career, at the onset of his career, and maybe at the onset of a career in operations?
So the question is, what's one thing I wish I knew before I began my studies at Gonzaga?
Before starting out the work experience, possibly in the field of operations.
Yeah. Quite frankly, that partying isn't everything it's cracked up to be. It can hurt your GPA, and it slows you down a little bit. So I have a sister that is a very high level executive at Boeing, and she graduated the same year I did at Gonzaga, and she's a year younger than I am. So she had her nose to the grindstone. I was, having fun with some friends, and I finished in 5 years. She finished in 4, and she's a big shot at Boeing now. So I guess that's the one thing I wish I'd have known.
So we have an audience question from Dr. Pepper. What is the worst or best behavior you have seen in an interview?
So the worst behavior I've seen was I had a guy that he told me that he was a lean guru, that he really knew lean inside and out, and that he could oversee all the value stream managers and work with them to get production up if we needed it, because we had a lot of business at the time. And he's the guy that I came in 2 weeks later and there were big piles of work in process. I mean, he flat out snowballed me. Just absolutely lied to me, and I believed him. So that would be the worst behavior that I've seen. The best behavior was a guy that I just hired recently as an engineer. And I said, what's your dream job? I'd already taken him through the factory. So he saw what we did, how the value streams work, how we create our own tools. He saw the whole organization, and he was, I could tell that he was really eager. And I said, so what's your dream job? And he said, anything you'll let me do here. Right. And he's one of the most motivated and hardest working guys we have. But I just thought that was a great answer. I said, okay, start Monday.
Oh, thank you. We have another question. How do you see the job market changing because of the current pandemic? And what advice do you have for students about navigating the job market as a graduating student, especially those who are graduating recently or maybe in the coming next year?
Yeah, so it's affected some of our customers who are non-essential businesses. So if you do decorative lighting, you know, say for restaurants and nightclubs, you're not making any products right now. But if you do lighting for hospitals and like we have some military contracts, that's essential. So I would focus, I would go to the list of essential businesses and focus on those right now, because they haven't necessarily seen a drop in business. I have seen one sector, two value streams that have seen a drop in business. But what we've done is just focus those people into the other value streams. So I think you need to focus on essential businesses for right now. And I think it's going to come back, but I don't think it's going to be the flip of the switch. We have a manufacturer that we sell to in Denver who is an essential business, who has 9 people out right now with COVID. So it's going to take some time. You guys are just going to have to be patient, because I think everybody's kind of buckling down right now, and just we want to weather the storm and see what's on the other side. I applied for a loan, so I'm paying everybody. If we have to clean the floors or the machines or do 5S, I've instructed our management team that nobody goes home unless they want to. If they want to, then they can take time off if they're worried about it. But so focus on essential businesses. That loan program that the government came out with is vital, and it's really helping. So there could be some people hiring here with that program, because you have to use 2.5 months worth of salary in 8 weeks. So that might be their time to test run you, take you for a test drive and see how you do. Because they've got that extra 2 weeks worth of payroll that they could use.
Thank you. We have another question. Is there a company that you try to model and look up to in regards to operations and their growth model?
Toyota, best in the world. Best in the world. So Toyota that's what everybody wants to be, who practices any lean, uses any lean tools. You want to be Toyota. They are the best in the world.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any advice to students who have a textbook understanding lean principles without experience in applying them? Basically, who want to work with lean principles but have never been able to on a job or an internship. How does someone start with that?
Call me up and come out. I'll give you a tour, and you can see it in action, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. It's the best way to, you can do the textbook side of it all day long, but until you see it in action, it doesn't click. But when you see the choreography happen, then you go, okay, I understand now.
Thank you. We have another question. Do you hire interns, and what do you look for when hiring interns?
We haven't. We had. Well, we have had interns, but they've all been engineering people, because that's that tends to be our bottleneck. Operations is fully staffed, and the interns that we have hired have been engineers, and we've given them production-related projects. In other words, you go support a value stream. This guy wants something designed to help him get his value stream running more efficiently, or this person, she needs a new conveyor or a jig or whatever. That's where we're focused right now. So in operations, no, we don't do interns, but we do on the engineering side to support operations.
Do you have any supply chain related work or supply chain related positions that you have in your organization?
Right now, we're fully staffed in that regard, but that could change, because with where we're getting product right now out of Southeast Asia, we're trying to mitigate the fact that, first of all, they have Chinese New Year, which everybody says is 2 weeks long. It's really a month. The factories don't come right back up to speed. And, you know, with this COVID that's come out, that Wuhan region produces a lot of product that's used here in the United States in the lighting industry. So we think if there's a push for products to be made onshore, we're going to want to go source those out, but it's got to happen first. So we may need some more supply chain management to contact these domestic vendors and bring less stuff in from overseas. So if we see that happen, I mean, that's what the Trump administration is talking about. And I mean, they're talking about pharmaceuticals being made here, right? So if they're going to make pharmaceuticals here, they can make anything here, right? Those are expensive to make. So if that happens, if there's a big push for, and Americans do start making these products that are made overseas, we're going to need help.
Thank you. Is your supply chain affected at all because of any suppliers being affected globally?
We ran about 2 weeks late on getting some stuff. So we have a strategic partnership with a company called Caferro. Caferro are US-based guys that have relationships in China that they've had for many, many years. And so they are supplying us with electronic components that come from China. They manage all of that. And we had about a 2 week slack right after Chinese New Year when that virus broke out. So the problem was that China allowed people to travel in and out and back to their hometowns and everywhere throughout China when that virus was breaking out. So that happened during a holiday. And that's what kind of stung us. But the products that we're buying from there are highly automated. And so it doesn't take a lot of people to run those plants. So we didn't see a big drop off, but we saw a 2 week lapse.
We have another question. How is the knowledge of operations useful to those who are looking to work outside of the operations field in marketing, maybe finance, HR, or accounting, or those kind of areas?
Yeah, I think it applies because you're using a thought process and a methodology to achieve a goal, right? And so operations gives you those tools to be able to get there. You may need some different skill sets if you're going to go into marketing, right? Like you have to understand what appeals to people and all of that. But if you're going to execute a marketing campaign and you're an operations person, you know, you have the backbone set of skills to go execute that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Does anyone have any more questions? I have a question. Has the tariffs and trade barriers that have been basically been imposed since the last 1 year, mainly by the US, is that affecting? I heard it's affecting small and medium-sized businesses. Is it affecting your business?
Yeah, we buy in excess of 1 million pounds of aluminum a year, and it was all subject to tariff. So none of it, I tried to go out and buy domestically, and even with the tariffs, it's more expensive. So aluminum it tends to be rolled in places where power is cheap, and right now our stuff's coming out of the Philippines. So we got hit with about 20%. And we just took the material cost increase, didn't change our margin, just added the increase to the products and passed that on to the customer. So we felt the margin portion of that. So if we got a product we're making 35 points on, and I had to add $5 worth of material in it, I didn't get the 35 points on the $5. But my operations people created some great models for me to be able to analyze that before I pulled the trigger. So back to the analytics, give me the data, create the model, show me the scenarios.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I see David has joined via his phone. So I can probably ask, maybe we have about just 2 minutes. I'll just ask a couple questions to David now that we have just a couple minutes. So David, what do you recommend college students do in order to prepare for a career in operations? Like any work experience is important, or do you feel a master's level degree is important, or should they sandwich it between some work experience or internship while they're doing an undergrad in their maybe final couple years, or is a certification useful, and or is a certification in lean or supply chain or Six Sigma useful? Many organizations have their ongoing training funds that they sponsor their students. Is there anything that you specifically recommend?
So I think probably one of the best things I've come across are internship programs. That, something that I was never exposed to it and never had that available when I was attending college. But those internship programs, I know the interns that we've brought into our company have really been invaluable, helping us target specific products or projects and solutions. But on the flip side, I think the students really benefited by being in the real world, seeing what really goes on and being able to apply, some of that knowledge they acquire in the classroom, which is, it's good, it's foundational, it's learning that needs to take place and builds a discipline of thought. But then again, you never really know how it's going to work out until you get stuck into the real world and start to apply those tools and techniques. So I think internships are probably one of the best things that a person could avail themselves of.
Okay, thank you.
From my perspective. Yeah, sorry about the connection, Ed. I don't know what happened. It's just everything went dead.
No problem at all. So one question to David once: what leadership attributes equate to success in the field of operations and supply chain management? Now both of you are at a very high position, almost the top 2 or 3 positions, officers or the vice presidents, directors. So are there any particular leadership qualities, attributes that equate to success in the field of operations?
I think it's fundamental to do what Ed does, that daily walk around. I think the leaders I've come across in my experience who don't do that, who don't go out and spend time in a focused activity with people doing the work. One of the best shows on TV is, what's that called? It's where the boss has to go out in disguise and he has to go out and spend time in his company, and he finds out so much about the company he never realized. And my thought process is, well, if you'd been doing that every day, you'd realize those things. You would see those things instead of spending time in your office. So I think that's probably the greatest trait that a leader could have, is being able to find ways to put themselves in those positions. So consequently, to build into a good leader, putting yourself in those positions to begin with builds that pattern into your method as a leader.
Thank you.
Yep.
And maybe I'll just have a couple last questions for David before we wrap it up. When you hire grads, you may have hired grads in your team possibly. What are the attributes, qualities that you're looking for in their resume during the interview?
For hiring people?
For hiring new grads, possibly new grads.
Okay. You're always looking, of course, for that technical capability. So your expectation is coming out of school, they completed, they got their degree. So a lot of times for us, it's not so much their position of academics. Did they come out with 4.0 or 3.97? Most of the time, it's just simply in the interview process, you expect them to be able to demonstrate some knowledge of those skills, but more importantly, we look for that ability of the person to communicate, to listen, and to be able to interact with people in a positive sense. So that's why in our interview process, we'll take people through maybe 8 different interviews before they actually get hired. Understand we hire in 2 different thrusts. We hire instructors, we hire people, aviators who can instruct. So that's a whole different skill set you're looking for, but nonetheless, we're looking for that ability to communicate, to lead, to provide guidance to people and listen. And then on the other side of that, we hire a lot of people in administrative functions and management functions, program managers, project managers, things like that. So your expectations, the skill set's there, but we're looking for a good fit with the team. Do they fit within our culture? Can they interact with the people that we're looking for them to interact with?
Thank you. And a last question, and then we can wrap it up. One piece of advice to the students.
Never stop learning. Don't think just because you get the little certificate on your wall, you walk out the door, you're now done with learning. Learning never ends.
Thank you. Thank you,
And don't
David.
forget compound interest.
Yeah, compound interest.
Compound interest.
Ashish, I just want to reiterate, whoever that was that that wanted to understand lean and maybe possibly go on a tour, have them reach out to me. You've got my contact information. Anybody that we can pass that on to, and they can carry that torch forward, right, David? We
Yep.
want to support lean, right? It's what makes great factories and great companies. They use it at my bank. So my bank in this crisis processed 1,900 loans in a week, and they normally do 20.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
And they've done a lot of Kaizen events, and they get it. So it works in any environment. It works in the office, but it also works on the factory floors.
What bank is that?
Washington Trust.
Washington Trust. Yeah. There was another bank that I think it got absorbed. Sterling, was it Sterling Savings?
Yep. Yeah, they're Umpqua now.
Yeah, they were really big into that as well.
Yeah, I know. So the guy that ran them, a guy named Ezra Eckhart, was a black belt, Six Sigma.
Yes.
I met him when he was at Honeywell. He's a very, very sharp guy.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Jealous of you both. Jealous of you both.
Oh, if we could just get lean into our government activities.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes. Thank you, Ed, and thank you, David, for sharing their valuable knowledge and expertise and with all of us. I hope it has been valuable to everyone, and I thank you to all the audience. And
Ashish, one little pitch for our class in the fall. We're going to be doing factory tours.
Okay.
Yes.
Sounds good. Like a plan. Thank you, Ed, and thank you, David. Thank you, Megan, for hosting the event.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Meg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
I'll chat with everyone else via email and other tools. Thank you.
Thanks for coordinating it all.
Thank you. Have a
Yeah,
nice day.
thank you both. And Ashish, yeah, I think you also recorded, so which is great.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.